All right, everyone, welcome to this program, Building Your Blitzkrieg Battle Plan. So, the definition of blitzkrieg is a proactive, preemptive, offensive campaign designed to totally overwhelm the enemy before there's any chance of recovery or retaliation. So, it's not a fight dynamic. If somebody is forcing you into a fight dynamic that you can't avoid, escape, de-escalate, then you do not want to fight on equal terms that will be drawn into a fight, which is an imposition of wills. Your best tactic would be to ambush the would-be aggressor, if you like. Ambush the individual that's striving to put you into a fight dynamic. So understand what I'm talking about. I'm talking about you're aware, you're switched on. There's a pre-fight, brief, interactive dialogue between you and another individual or group of individuals as a potentially combative subject. And you try to walk all around and move away and they arrest your movement, and you understand immediately that if this isn't negotiated effectively, this is going to turn into violence. And that your best chance of success would be blitzkrieg, proactive dynamic. Now, that could happen or occur from striking once preemptively, but you will always prepare to strike with an immediate barrage of strikes, which is, in this case, in the context of what we're talking about unarmed. We're talking about an unarmed offensive. The same applies to weapons, but an unarmed offensive that is offensively defensive, that allows you to focus on one thing, stopping the situation before it escalates any further, before it becomes necessary for you to counter-offend. So if you allow the other subject to kick off first, then you will be responding to what he's doing, which is never the ideal. So the one that goes first with the most is the best. So how do you cultivate a battle plan that will allow you to go first with the most so that you come out the best? So there's two components. There's the emotional software and the physical hardware. The emotional software is the will to take part. The physical hardware is the skill part. So I would place will slightly ahead of importance in terms of between will and skill. You need to be proficient enough, but it's will to do what's necessary to prevail that is most important, and that comes from your emotional platform. However, will combined with skill, physical hardware, and the correct tactics will equate to complete physical dominance during the potential violent dynamic, which is what we're talking about. So cultivating a battle plan, a blitzkrieg battle plan. Now, I cannot emphasize enough the importance of, once you have such a set battle plan in place, of seeing a successful result of its application within your own mind's eye. And to do that, you need to practice visualization. So visualization for crisis rehearsal, where you are cutting a neurological pathway with your training that is external kinesthetic, whilst creating an internal visualization of your plan in action, with you doing it successfully, along with this proactive battle plan within your visualization is also a plan B, counter-offensive alternative should the what you implement require a contingency plan. So you are cultivating a battle plan, which is your plan A, which is proactive, supported with the contingency plan of a plan B, should you not get the opportunity to preempt, or if you go to preempt and the other person is now doing something to you, in which case your default plan B would be to immediately cover, crash forward, and then explode out of cover. So plan A and plan B, but what we're focused on here is your proactive battle plan for blitzkrieg. Right? Now, that will begin with the first thing you do, and that will come or happen from a non-violent posture. So remember what we're talking about here. I'm not talking about a match fight where you square up and have a square go like your granddad's generation. I'm not talking about this person's just on you and as an attack you now had to cover and explode out of cover. You got ambushed. I'm talking about there is a pre-fight pattern of behaviour where the person sees you, you make eye contact, there's a hard stare, looks you up and down, walks towards you. Now introductory dialogue begins as he attempts to close this space. Well, as he attempts to close this space, the very first thing you want to do is create a platform that's non-violent. So, two ranges that we're talking about here are conversation range, arm's length, or in your face range, if it's a confined space, noisy environment, lots of people around, etc., etc. So, arm's length and in your face, you should have a position of situational control that is passive as well as active. You should have it similar from a closer position, whereby your hands are available or, if you've been alerted, up. This is the platform from which you will launch your blitzkrieg. Now, in terms of how we strike, we want to strike with immediacy, as much explosion as we can detonate, as we can recruit in terms of fast twitch fibers, so that our response can be immediate and direct. And that will initiate from this natural platform with your favoured preemptive strike, which initially should be with your dominant hand. Right? So knowing how your body works, any shot that you throw, and we're looking at a high-line head target to start with, because this is the way in which we will clinically switch off the computer as we'll talk about. But we're looking at a hand strike to the head. In this case, we're talking about generic targeting. So we're talking any bone you plate on the skull, predominantly the forehead, chin, point of the chin, around the angle of the jawbone left and right, behind the ear, back of the skull if it presents itself, any hard ledge of bone that will create purchase when I hit it to shake brain matter inside, which is concussive, which is what we're looking for. So we're looking for a concussive entry with a hand strike. Now that can be linear, coming straight in, or it could be angular, but even somewhat still linear, straight line coming around. And this is the only way we're going to strike from a frontal perspective. If the subject is offline to me, then a backhanded strike motion would be implemented. I wouldn't employ that from the front. It's either linear or angular. Linear or angular, most likely. And that can be a punch, it could be a forearm, it could be a slap, it could be a palm, it could be an elbow if you're close, whatever. But the movement pattern is linear, straight from here to the target. As I explode off the back foot, drop weight and hit with depth through. Right. Some cases, if you're close in, the straight shot could be coming up, or it can be coming down, but it's still going straight. So the body mechanics that fuel any linear strike or angular shot come from cultivating weight transference from drop step and hip torque and variance thereof, as we'll discuss as we go. But nonetheless, your physical platform is from where you will launch your first preemptive strike. Now, you can throw a singular strike and then attached, ready to continue, or you can effectively create a preemptive strike in a flurry of three. So, as an example, instead of a palm strike, I might go palm blitz as an entry. And that also has a place if I'm a little late preemptively and the person's coming into me and now I have to stop him. I could throw as a preemptive strike. In this case, if I'm left side back, because it's the preferred dominant, although you should be equally good at both, then I'm southpaw. The combination in boxing, cross, jab, cross, would be referred to in numbers as 2-1-2. 2-1-2. Well, I could go 2-1-2 boom as an entry for a preempt before I grab and continue if there's a need after. I can implement that as a palm strike, or I could go palm elbow as a preemptive entry, a blitz entry. So if I use a blitz entry, I'm using a tool in a succession of 3 strikes. Still a preemptive strike. Or I'm using a singular shot as a start for 10, as a preemptive strike. And my contingency plan of covering and crashing in case you hit me can also be implemented offensively as a proactive preemptive strike in order to crash and come forward. This is a really intelligent choice of preemptive strike simply because the structures that I'm propelling forward are the points of my elbows with accelerated body weight coming through a target with depth, which means there's no need for me to really target because wherever I hit in the generic middle line or high line, I'm going to damage. And the next great thing about it is that I'm completely framed and protected as I'm coming forward, which indeed would mitigate anything that you throw at me. And I could argue from a third-party CCTV perspective, I flinched because I thought he was going to hit me. But nonetheless, a singular strike, a flurry of strikes, or a crashed cover can be interpreted as your preemptive, proactive starter for 10. So the reason that it's absolutely essential that once you've established whatever your favoured main artillery is, how you will attack your blitzkrieg dynamic, which is the physical part, physical hardware. The most important part is the emotional software. And the emotional software is having control and emotional state management over adrenaline, fear, confusion, denial, pain, disorientation, all of the elements that would be present during a potential fight dynamic, equate to fight duress, but have to be controlled in order for you to be able to access your physical skill set to the best of your ability. So that will require emotional software. And that emotional software is basically state management, controlling emotional state under duress, and state access, accessing the most efficient and beneficial to you emotional states during the full fight dynamic. Now, one absolute essential prerequisite if you want to reach combative functionality is regular simulation scenario training with fully kitted role players that are compliant. And that will create a blueprint for practice of your favourite proactive entry. Now, you can cultivate it like that. Now, usually with simulation and scenario training, we take away the option for preemption. So how we would use it within a simulated sense is, right, you're going to have a situation that you're going to need to deal with in a physical sense. But you need to dictate when you're preemptive. Now, if you get preemptive, you'll be penalised because you went too early, there was no pre-threat queue. And if you miss the pre-threat queue and you're late, it's going to attack you. And if your proactive dynamic entry wasn't efficient enough, he's going to fight back relentless. So there's still shit that can go wrong, but the point is you want to put yourself in a situation where you're working under those non-compliant dynamics with good role players so that you can access that part of your brain that you want to communicate with, which is the subconscious part. So in cognitive brain, right where you are right now, is not the part of the brain that I want to communicate with. So therefore it's not the part of the brain I'm going to listen to. The part of the brain I want to communicate with is the emotional state that I'll be in if in a sudden confrontation, unless you are very seasoned and very experienced with handling adrenal stress in such situations, then you will feel the effects of adrenaline to a significant enough degree that blood could be withdrawn from the frontal neocortex of your brain and also your limbs, your extremities, to go to your heart and lungs where it's needed more. That leaves you with extremity shakes, and it also leaves you with the ability to impairment to your ability to cognitively make decisions. Your cognitive brain shuts down and is replaced with the limbic brain. So within limbic brain, if you're pushed within that kind of even towards the reptile frog brain, then you are left with a different form of intelligence. Language and rationality doesn't come into the equation. You simply operate off feeling, in which case you feel really scared, you feel really angry, really anxious, or whatever else. So when you are in subconscious brain, if you respond in a physical sense, the whatever that you have done most is most likely what will be triggered. But if you've only ever practiced in a sterile environment where there's been no emotional elicitation, then chances are when you hit limbic brain, the subconscious would be looking through data files for stimuli response data and recognise that no such experience has ever been had before, in which case there is no data. Now, because we're talking about preparing a blitzkrieg response, so basically if somebody comes up to you to give you a problem that you can't avoid, can't escape, can't mitigate in any way, then be first. Keep going till it's done. And what you implement to do that is the principle of blitzkrieg. And inside of the principle of blitzkrieg would be useful if you had a pre-planned physical response and you knew exactly when to implement it via a mental trigger. So chances are, if you've never been in a situation where somebody has forced you into the possibility of violence, then you've probably never thought about being preemptive and what you would do. And you've most likely never put yourself in a simulation scenario setting with fully kitted, padded assailants that are non-compliant, where you would practice your set battle plan, because it's never entered your head. So if you've never really had the real experience of having to fight in that way, if you've never practiced in simulation, if you've never even thought about it, then there is no data in the subconscious brain. There is no data on a disk. So it's absolutely essential that you see a successful delivery of your blitzkrieg battle plan, let's say, in your mind's eye. And you do that, as I said, via visualization, mental imagery, crisis rehearsal. So understand this. The part of your brain that we're communicating with cannot decipher the difference between a real experience, simulated scenario training experience that's got all the right ingredients, or a heavily, intently visualized experience inside of your head as moving pictures. As long as all three elicit an emotional response. And that emotional response can be as simple as an increased heart rate, deepened breathing, change in your physiology. Now emotional content is present. So what you are in fact doing with correct visualization of your battle plan, with frequent repetitions as well as frequent physical practice, and then fusing both together, is you are creating a blueprint. You're creating a blueprint in your subconscious brain that has been there before. So as I said before, your subconscious brain will always do what's best for you if it has the choice, right? So think about this hypothetical situation that you've never experienced before in life. Right? So you turn a corner, someone comes up to you, starts getting extremely aggressive, you're very confused and bewildered, and all of a sudden they beat you down to the ground, put the boots to you, and you end up in hospital. So in a sense, they blitzkrieged you, right? That's what they've done. This all comes from criminality and warfare. In which case then, post-event, after that event, if you survive the event, there's probably motivation for you to do something about that, and nothing else, so that that doesn't happen again, in which case you would seek training. But even if you did a specific amount of training, unless you specifically are training for that event, for dealing with that event before it gets there by being proactive, then, like I said, there's no data on the disk. But let's say you've never had that experience. Let's say that you've never simulated that experience in training and you've never thought about it, let alone sat down and visualized it. Well, then there's no data. So your subconscious brain caught in that state will do what it can as best for you. Now, that may be that as soon as somebody offers you violence, you immediately retaliate. And that may be efficient enough, or chances are, more likely, as adrenaline hits the body, is that you will flail ineffectually. But you may respond physically. Or your reaction, because there's no data on the disc, might be an immediate state of hypervigilance. So if there is no data on the disc that tells you how to deal with this dangerous stimuli, then the very next best thing your subconscious brain can do for you is nothing. Just freeze. Keep still. It'll be over soon. Denial, fawn response, which get bad, get killed. So chances are then, if there's no data on the disc, there's not going to be any response. You're going to flail ineffectually. You might get lucky, throw a lucky shot, or you might freeze together. So the reason for that is there's not a more efficient solution available as data for you to access. So by building your blitzkrieg battle plan from a physical hardware point of view, where you have the physical attributes and ability to do it well, as well as an emotional software where you have heavily visualized yourself successfully doing it, and also successfully implementing contingency plans if it doesn't go your way, so you've got a plan B. And you are physically training those skills, and you are sitting and internally visualizing those skills. And then, most importantly, you are externally physically implementing those skills whilst you visualize in your head that scenario. Now you are creating a blueprint. Now you are, with the elicitation of an emotional response, putting data or options on the subconscious brain's hard drive. So, like I said, now your subconscious brain, faced with said stimuli, previously had no experience of the event, do the next best thing, freeze. So its one option was freeze. Now it's got two options. It's got freeze, and it's got fight efficiently with tactics, tooth and nail, until it's over, which is a better option. So your subconscious brain will always go with what's best for you if you give it choice. So you are putting a blueprint on the data bank of your subconscious brain. You are cutting a neurological pathway that will allow you, in a physical sense, once said stimuli represents threat to you, to activate said preemptive battle plan blitzkrieg. So that's what this is about. We are looking to create an immediate, direct, explosive battle plan that's proactive in nature, that can work right from the very beginning of its entry, or right through what's necessary to be done. And it will give you the highest probability of success as long as the ingredients are in place. So that's what we're going to discuss. We're going to discuss the breakdown of the physical hardware. The physical part is relatively simple. And the tactical dynamic, the understanding of how the body moves, the understanding of targeting, and the effect that the most likely effects that your physical hard skills will have on human anatomy, and contingency plans to follow up if it doesn't go your way, etc., etc. All of the data that you need to effectively and clinically remove a subject in front of you is going to be presented to you via the emotional software and the physical hardware elements that will be needed. Now you have a formula. Now you have a plan. People don't plan to fail, they just fail to plan. So give yourself the highest probability of success.